Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the live coverage of the 4PL Play for Fame tournament in July. It's a TT Esports tournament here, and it's going to be TMSK facing off against Tt.dragons. I'm Metis, and I'm joined once again by the lovely Pulse. How are you doing, Richard, on this fine day?
Good afternoon. It's raining before, actually. It's not that fun, but, you know. I appreciate the thought, you know. Anyway, on to the bands and picks. We do have Anivia and Carthus. Anivia is interesting as a band. You only really see that against MoMA. You don't usually see it. I mean, it's really nice as control later into the game, but Carthus, of course, the global ultimate, Urgot, always banned in every single game in the history of League of Legends. So, yep, just waiting for NukeDuck to bring out the Malphite ban. Again, Malphite very strong at the moment. It's just one of those standard bans, but there are quite a few global ultimates already not being banned out, so we could see some global ultimates this game as well. Though there are so many global ultimates, it's very difficult to ban all of them out.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to have Aurelia taken. Of course, there's a strong top laner. And back once again to NukeDuck to see what number 6 is going to be here in the banning stage. Another 13 seconds to decide. This is a first round, guys, and Team MegaShocK against Tt.dragons, Pulse, is a kind of game you'd expect to see in the semi-finals or finals. So it's really odd that we actually see these two clashing this early on in the tournament.
Yeah, sometimes you do get that random seed though, which is kind of sad considering, as you said, they should be much further on into the tournament. And it's sad to see one of these teams be eliminated this early on, but that's how the ball rolls. So we will have Nocturne already with the global ultimates. Ashe has been banned out. Very interesting. Irelia I can kind of understand because no matter how much you nerf Irelia, it's usually to the early game. So her late game is always going to be strong. And if she has a good-ish laning phase, as long as she doesn't get shut down, she's very, very nice when it comes to team fights. So Ashe, interesting. So it eliminates the initiation aspect, I suppose, and utility steroid. But very interesting ban. You never usually see that.
There's a lot of other bans I would have thought could have been taken out. For example, a Shen and Nocturne has been picked up. Could both have been eliminated, but we are going to be carrying on regardless. Team MegaShocK following on with this kind of strange resurrection of Sona. We've not seen for a very, very long time, and then in as many days, like we've casted what, 3 out of the last 4 days, Pulse, and Sona has definitely been pick number 1 in terms of support. So she's going to be going down bot lane alongside Ezreal more than likely. Of course, Ezreal can be played in mid, but 9 times out of 10 will be the AD carry. And back over to Tt.dragons, looks like we could have a Skarner in the jungle.
Yeah, Sona's a very odd pick in that sense. It just came out of nowhere. From Janna and Soraka being the top picks from every single tournament ever, it was Sona immediately. It only received a very minor buff as well, so I guess all that's Sona needed. It's quite interesting. But yeah, Skarner could be picked up here. Kayle is very strong, very competent top laner. It's like a lane bully in the same way that Yorick works, and of course you kind of lack the tankiness, but you do have the ultimate to make up for it, and you have this sort of late game scaling where you essentially have a second AD carry, and potentially Nasus coming out. I suppose they're just going to swap around, ask a team what they want, and Nekata, they're probably going to be swapping around, I guess. Nasus, interesting pick.
Wow. He's a kind of character that needs a lot of farm, and he needs a lot of time to proc off his Q, of course. So that's kind of interesting. Kayle has already been picked as well. So I guess Kayle support Alistar jungle and then Nasus at top. I'm not too sure, actually.
Interesting. Well, of course, the way they've done it, it makes it very difficult for the opponent to actually know, because even as casters, we still don't know. So, yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, Nasus, they haven't even picked their top lane, which is very odd in itself, because usually you do Nasus as like a counter pick, or not so much a counter pick. Am I going to get destroyed in lane or not? And if they don't know what the lane is, then it's easily counter picked. That's a problem with Nasus at the moment. And they're going to pick Kennen against it, most likely, so that's really going to hurt, because he is ranged after all.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very, very long time since I personally seen Nasus at top lane at this kind of competitive aspect of the game. And alongside the Kayle and Alistar, I am very interested to see how this one is going to switch around. I have seen Kayle jungle as well, so it's very possible that Kayle could be popping up the jungle with the Q, of course, which does slow down the Reckoning. And then on top of that, the Righteous Fury is incredible burst damage. And also, not just burst damage, but also just consistently spammable as well. So let's have a quick look. Some of the switches are coming in. You can have Galio in mid. Dree does have the Alistair, so it looks like we will be seeing Kale in the jungles. Nasa's top, Alistair support.
That is interesting. As team compositions go, that's quite janky. Looking at the other team, it's more conventional. They have a great mid game. Double AP, of course, scales really, really nicely. 2 teleports in the fields. Once again, they will be mid, so obviously no advantage with the Ignite this time round. And of course, the Sonar ultimate, yeah, that's some really nice early game and then mid game scaling. But on the flip side, you do have Tt.dragons with a really, really nice mid and then late game. Galio, of course, allowing you to invade with impunity. And there's the swap up. Thank you. Nasa's jungle makes a bit more sense, actually.
1 second to go, better switch up. So yeah, Kale's going to be top, Nasus in the jungle. As I say, it does make a lot of sense. He's viable in the jungle. As he comes out with his W, his Wither will slow you down very, very much, and it's difficult to actually escape him in that context, especially when you have an Alistair at bot lane, which of course with the headbutt and pulverizer combination is horrific. The Reckoning from Kale is added slow to the Wither, and on top of that, Galio can slow and speed up with his Righteous Gust and his Resolute Smite. So lots of CC on the team of Tt.dragons. We haven't really mentioned a great deal about Team MegaShocK so far. They're going to be running more than likely a double AP comp with Kennen in mid and Kennen top and Morgana in mid. Alongside that, you've got Nocturne jungle, extremely strong jungle. We've mentioned this a couple times. Can gank from behind the ward coverage with his ultimate, the Paranoia, and then finally lots of burst at level 6 will be coming out from Sona and Ezreal. It's a crescendo true shot barrage combination that really does just devastate that bot lane.
Yeah, they have some really, really nice laning, and Nocturne has some really, really nice ganking lanes as well because they all have CC. On the flip side, they have a lot of counter initiate, and they have the king of basically free-man invade. So if they want to go for the invade at level 1, they can do it, and so it's pretty easy for them to do that one.
Indeed. So we've got 1 minute 30 remaining, guys. We're going to cut to a very quick commercial break. And when we rejoin us, we'll be live for game number 1 in the 4PL Play for Fame number 3 tournament. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these short messages. Hello and welcome back to game number 1 here. It's going to be best of 1 format throughout this tournament, so any cataclysmic errors and you will find yourself out. We are going to be cracking on with Team MegaShocK facing off against Tt.dragons, formerly known as Better Buff Nilly. I met this joined by Pulse, and we are live here. How are you doing, Pulse? And what are your thoughts about the compositions overall?
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit during the Champion Select, and they're very interesting. At the moment, basically, it looks like Tt.dragons just kind of have to hold out. I mean, they have pretty strong laning, actually, and great mid-game, but it's weaker than, actually, Goat's gonna Seedry. Yeah, there's the offensive ward. That's a bit of banter going on as well. That's Better Buff Nidalee or Tt.dragons always go for, every single time for the early invade. But with the compositions, they kind of need to wait out until mid-game, wait until Necrodope gets some farm on his queue, because TMSK have a really nice mid-game and early game, which is arguably slightly better than Tt.dragons.
I will say one thing though. Tt.dragons late game, especially if Nasus can get himself fed, is going to be ridiculously strong. Nasus is one of those kind of characters, he's not picked a great deal because if you can bully him out of top lane as he's normally played, he's very difficult to actually bring back into the game. But taking jungle, we said this before in the Champion Select, it does make sense because it's going to allow him to land his Qs on every single minion, and when he comes into those ganks as well with the Wither, he can be picking the kills up left, right and centre. So, in my opinion, this game is going to depend very heavily on how Nasus performs.
Definitely, and they can draw out the late game as well, and that's really going to hurt TMSK, because late game Nasus is ridiculous, obviously because of Q farm, and it's very difficult to shut down a Nasus in the jungle, because he's in the jungle, unless you have a strong counter jungler, which Nocturne really isn't. He's a ganking jungler, but he doesn't gain a lot of power until 6. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how TMSK handle this one. They need to get the advantage early, otherwise it's going to scale out of control.
I agree with a lot what you just said. I mean, Nocturne is not reliable with counter jungling. If you think of a character like a Lee Sin or a Shyvana, then fair enough. But Nocturne is pretty much get his head down, farm until level 6. Obviously, if the ganks are open, then he's going to go ahead and try and pick them up. But level 6 is when he really begins to shine. So let's have a quick look at Nasus. He's going to pick 1 point in Spirit Fire, which is what he took first, and of course afterwards the Q, which we said before he needs to proc off. There you go, just finishes off the siphoning strike on towards red, and now he's going to be coming up towards top lane. Has put a point in Wither, which is his W, slows down significantly. It's horrific the higher up it gets, so a nice ganking tool will be coming into effect alongside Reckoning, which Kale does have a point in, 1 in Righteous Fury, 1 in Reckoning 2. They are going to be opening things up, and in the meantime, you're going to have Nocturne coming around the backside onto Nuke Duck. Lots of damage will be put down. Is it going to be enough to actually pick up the kill though? Flash comes in, Dark Binding has landed though. Will they be going back in? No, they won't. Nice Q Resolute Smite used from Galio, and he will go back to spawn.
Interesting enough, because both players took teleport, if they'd taken Ignite, both players would have died, because it was within kill range and they would have actually committed to it. Wow, Spirit of Mage taking a lot of damage from Ednex, wow. But that was quite interesting, but they really need the teleport, and that's great for engages, great for just the global presence, because as you can see, they only have 1 global ultimate, and because global ultimate's in right now, it makes a lot of sense to give your AP carry a teleport. That basically gives them a global ultimate.
Yeah, definitely, and interesting enough as well, Galio, because of his ultimate, the Idol of Durand, if we look into the future a tiny bit, I'm going to expect that dragon fights will go down, a ward will be placed, and you'll see Nuke Duck coming with a teleport and an Idol of Durand. It's typically how Galio players approach the situation going into the game, similar to how we saw Kennen. I can't remember which team they were facing off against, but he was against a Twisted Fate in mid, took the teleport to try and negate that Destiny ganks that we all know and love about Twisted Fate. So I'd expect Galio to teleport down, try and pick up some kills, maybe a ward in the bush will also do the trick. He come in from the backside, pop his ultimate and get lots and lots of kills for his team.
Definitely. Well, Galio is really good at 3-man invades as well, but I expect Tt.dragons to really go for those 3-man invades, because that's really what they're going to be strong in, basically. And Blade Master walking potentially into trouble.
Yeah, he is going to maybe get feared, but if you have a quick look at Kennen's positioning, they were not going to follow up onto that. More harassment than anything else, allowing El Mupo just to clear up this creep wave. In the meantime, at bot lane, you did mention it before, Spirit of Mage got completely crippled. Alistair's going to be going in with the headbutt pulverized. In doing so, actually takes more damage than he dealt out, so maybe not the greatest of exchanges there. Power Cord comes out from Sona. And I think Sona is... She's so burst dependent. Meanwhile, at top lane, though, we are going to have first blood. Kedden tower diving onto Kayle. Ignite was used as well, I believe. So El Mopo will have a nice opening start. Needs to be careful because Nekadurp is coming up. He's going to be fine. Lightning charging away. So yeah, first blood on Kennen at top.
It's kind of helpful for Nasus though, because that's basically what 16 creeps he just picked up, and some more charges on his Q. So that's pretty good for Nasus, pushing out the lane as well. So it's not too massive of a hit. You can only see 2k advantage, 200 advantage rather. And considering first blood is 400 gold, you can see already the farm is leaning towards Tt.dragons. And yeah, at bottom, basically the comp doesn't work all that well in lane. Usually you pick Alistar for the laning presence because you have the heal, of course, and then the massive engage and a quite significant upfront burst as well from Alistar. However, you have two range characters, so if you commit, if you don't completely win out the trade, then they're going to turn around and hit you as you run. So you have to basically have more burst damage than them, a significant amount, to actually come out better.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we've focused a lot on Nasus with his Q, the Siphoning Strike, I'll read it out for here. The passive on Siphoning Strike will permanently gain 3 damage per kill. So basically, he's going through the jungle right now. He has plus 21 physical damage on top of his Siphoning Strike. Doesn't sound great right now, but take into account when we get towards a 30-40 minute mark, he is going to be putting out all kinds of damage, especially when you take into account his ultimate on top of everything else. So it's definitely one to watch out for. This is the reason why Nasus isn't picked a great deal, because it definitely does scale towards that mid to late game.
Yep. Nasus potentially looking to do some bottom. I don't think he can, however, but of course that will. His kit is really nice. If he can get to late game, he's ridiculous, because he can duel anyone on the map, if not 2 people at the same time. That's what makes Nasus ridiculous at late game. And scary thing with Nasus is because he has infinite power, essentially, in the same way that Veigar does, because he never scales off. Meanwhile, wait, no, he's attacking minions. It's fine, unless he wants to watch a minion being murdered. But Veigar and Nasus have infinite power, so theoretically, if you get to 1 hour in and 2 hours in, they're constantly gaining power where people scale off at full item builds, and that's where they shine. Well, not at 2 hours in, but you get the idea.
Yeah, you mentioned Veigar. Obviously, his Q is very similar, but instead of it being physical damage, of course, it's ability power. So, you know, Nasus, we said before, is going to scale well. Also important to note that Corki will. Corki gets stronger and stronger the later the game goes on. If he gets farmed up and full item built, he is going to do a lot of damage, and very, very quickly. Especially when you take into consideration, we haven't mentioned him too much, but Galio. Galio's ultimate, if it's landed perfectly, he does have the flash you'd expect alongside the Idol of Durand, is going to be able to set up those kills so well for the rest of his team. And on top of that, Kayle has intervention, so they can keep Corki or a Nasus alive for even longer to output that serious damage that we were talking about just before.
Now 8 minutes in, most people are hitting level 6 or above. Now is the time where it's going to start getting interesting. Nocturne's going to be ganking soon, and they're going to be going in for these invades, and actually meanwhile mid, Nuke's actually getting taken out. Yeah,
the Soul Shackles and the Dot Binding being forced to flash through the wall, that is going to just about save his life. And chugging through a health potion as well. Didn't bother to pop off the ultimate, completely understandably. Just wanted to get the hell out of that. So Nuke is going to hang around, maybe just to finish off this wave of creeps and then go back to spawn once again. Righteous Gust was thrown out alongside the Resolute Smite, will clear the wave, and then Understandable will be recalling. Meanwhile at bot lane though, you are going to have Goat Slayer coming down into the bot bush. I cast this guy quite a lot back when Chaos TV started getting into League of Legends. He's a very, very good jungler. But can he be picking this one up? They know where Alistar is. They have a pink ward in the bush. So it's just a case of finding that right moment to strike. Maybe waiting, actually, for Sona to hit level 5 so that she'll have Crescendo. How far is she off? About 2 or 3 creeps at most. So I think they're going to wait for 6, put down the Crescendo, put down the True Shot Barrage, and then Paranoia is going to come in too. So tense here at bot lane, just waiting for Crescendo to be available for Sona. And when will actually be coming up? It just seems to take forever. There we go, level 6s came up. Will they now be pushing in? That's the question. Steve ever so slowly moving forward. Nocturne can afford to just stand here for the time being, because of course Paranoia has fairly decent range. Do you think they're going to go for the tower dive?
I'm not sure if they can. Alistair has 6 as well. Suppose Mage has the Valkyrie. He can reposition himself pretty well. It's going to have to be a very tight tower dive. It's going to have to be a nuke. I don't think they can do it, honestly. And he's going to slink away.
Here's me bigging it up like, we are going to have action at bot lane, and then it just kind of massive anti-climax, and Nocturne pulled himself back. So nothing actually ended up coming out that one. Maybe going to wait for a more opportune moment. In the meanwhile, Nasus slowly but surely getting his items up. You're going to have the Philosopher's Stone and a Ruby Crystal, maybe going into the Heart of Gold. Not entirely sure, only time will tell. Let's have a quick look towards top lane's farm. In fact, let's go back towards mid lane, because here comes Nekadut from the side, but unfortunately Galio was more interested in going to pick himself up some wraiths.
It goes back to that day, doesn't it, where I'm no tactical genius, but farming wraiths while someone's ganking or there's a team fight going on is not the best thing to be doing. A bit of miscommunication, I feel. And honestly, it's very difficult to gank Morgana because she can Black Shield as soon as that Wither goes down, so it's going to completely negate the effect, which is his main ganking tool. And Wither is so strong, it might as well just be a hard CC, because at the end, on level 5, I think it brings someone down to about 5% movement speed, something ridiculous like that. So it's basically an immobilize straight up. But, as you said, meanwhile on bottom, Dree and Spirit of Mage played that really well, because as soon as someone hit 6, they knew exactly what was going to happen. They were probably expecting the Nocturne gank as well, because it's like, okay, you've hit 6, you have massive burst potential, and that's how you're going to trade out. So, we know what you're doing, I'm just going to step back a bit. So as soon as Sona walked forwards, he walked back, instead of engaging, and he knew what he had to do, basically. At bottom lane, pretty much, TMSK will have the advantage all the way through that laning phase.
Yeah, it's well-disciplined approach from both of the bot laners, because at the same time, Team MegaShocK didn't want to blow those 2 ultis, actually 3 if the Paranoia came in as well, over something that may not have worked. They want to wait for that perfect moment, that perfect time to strike. And if that hadn't been the case, then there's no point just going in regardless. The True Shot Barrage has just been used from Etnex at bot lane, just trying to clear the wave very quickly, maybe planning on going back very shortly. I'd expect that to be the case. Normally you would push a lane and then recall. Or are they waiting for a gank? Because Goat Slayer has came down. So, could have take 2. This time, of course, they do not have the True Shot Barrage, but they have more than enough damage to pick up this kill. Dree's going to be going towards that bush. Here comes the flash and the crescendo. It did manage to land onto Corki, and we are going to have Nocturne jumping underneath that tower. Flash has been pumped. This could really backfire on towards Goat Slayer. Ignite's been ticked down. He is going to fall from Corki. And in the meantime, here's Nasus from the backside, going to be trying to rain down on towards the 2 bot characters. You are going to have Morgana coming back with the Soul Shackles and the Dark Binding alongside a Tormented Soul, and picks up the kill onto Alistair. So that was just backwards and forwards to start off with. I thought Nocturne had made somewhat of an error, but it turned out in their advantage, a 1-for-2 exchange. And meanwhile at top lane, Kayle very nearly falls to Kennen.
Kennen trying to get the kill off here. He's clearing the wave. Wants to do something. Kayle can't go back. She needs help from somewhere. That's just whether Kennen actually will go for this. No, he's going to go ahead and recall. A bit too risky. Actually, Galio heading up.
Kennen's recalled regardless, so nothing's really going to go down there. But a really interesting twist of events at bot lane. Nocturne fires in underneath the tower, gets completely destroyed, but then Morgana with the quick reactions comes down and actually picks up a kill. So Team MegaShocK 3-1 ahead and 900. In fact, sorry, I can't do maths. It would appear 1100 gold on top of that.
Take a look at the builds at the moment, and honestly we don't really see that many jungle Nasuses, so I'm interested in his build. He's gone double gold per 5, a bit like a Skarner build, because generally support junglers go that build, but Skarner does as well, generally people with a lot of CC. So I'm just interested in how he's going to build, and he's going for the Merc Tread as well, yeah. I assume like a Skarner build would make a lot of sense.
Well, Drake has been started now from Tt.dragons. This would completely negate that earlier gold lead for Team MegaShocK, and there's not too much that TMSK can do from this point. You are going to have the Slain Dragon going down courtesy of the Tt.dragons. That's going to allow Kennen to farm top for a little while though, because Kayle did come down to bot lane to help the rest of his team. And yeah, the only 400 gold lead now to TMSK. Very, very close game, has to be said here, Pauls. Only 4 kills after nearly 15 minutes.
Yeah, due to the composition, you kind of expect TMSK to be ahead anyway, because they have stronger early game, they have slightly stronger mid game, but as soon as Nasus gets into his prime, along with a couple of the other characters, in fact, like Kale, then of course Tt.dragons are going to have the advantage. So the fact they made that timing push right there and took the Drake, that's just put them in a great position, basically. They should be far more behind, and this is a perfect scenario for them right now. Even though they're slightly behind, that's fine. They expect to be. But if they can survive, then they're going to be far stronger. It's a matter of whether Team SK can actually push their advantage mid-game before they scale off in comparison to that really, really strong Nasus and Kale.
I couldn't agree more. I think this right now, Tt.dragons will be very, very happy. They're going to be diving on towards Kale. Look at the Slicing Maelstrom and Paranoia back to back. The Unspeakable Horror has been popped, and intervention was already used, so Kennen will be picking up his second kill at top lane. At bot, we are going to have some action coming in from Galio. The teleport was used onto the ward as I was expecting. Can they finish off Steve? Crescendo was popped there. A flash. The Resolute Smite will only just claim the kill of Steve. And then they will be pulling themselves back out of that situation. So top and bottom action all in one. And as I said previously, this is the importance of taking teleport on Galio, just being a ganking machine all over the map. We are going to have Nekadurp getting chased down from Goats and Coutard, but he should be just fine. He's quite tanky at this stage of the game, with a null magic mantle and a heart of gold.
Yeah, Nasus is inherently tanky, and especially with his ultimate, he's practically unkillable. Especially when he gets the extra health, he can duel pretty much anyone when he gets 6, just because of the base stats it gives. But yeah, meanwhile, bottom, Galio did a great job. He got the kill, and Crescendo went out. Perfect time by Steve. Stopped that ultimate as soon as it went out. But it just wasn't enough to save her life. It was perfect play, though, from both parts. But they are still in a good position. They haven't completely scaled off. It feels like a ticking time bomb, because they need to shut them down before they just get to the stage where they want to be. So it's very difficult. It's a bit like when pairs are playing against Moscow 5. It's like you have to get the early advantage before they get into the prime of the team fighting and roaming stage, because that's where they're strongest. It's just shutting them down.
I also feel like we need to make a quick nod of approval to NukeDuck for taking Galio, because they're against a double AP comp, and Galio is very much an anti-AP champion. So this is looking very, very good for him. Again, going into that mid to late game, when he is full itemed or thereabouts, he is going to be very scary. Already has a Chalice of Harmony and a Bizzle Scepter, so looking very strong for this stage of the game. We are going to have Goats coming down towards the bot lane, but there's a ward in the bush, and in the meantime, Nekadurp will also be following suit with an Oracle, so trying to clear out those wards. This far, not really finding any. In fact, is there a single ward on the map? Yes, there is, just next to red buff that's been planted down from Kennen. Apart from that, it's looking quite bare.
I'm just looking for something to happen. Actually, some action could happen at top fairly soon.
NukeDuck has been caught out from Elmupo, but he is so tanky with that bulwark. Gets caught out from the Dark Binding. They aren't going to be diving on him here with the Slicing Maelstrom. It's going to be more than enough damage if that Soul Shackles does pop off. Indeed it will, so it's all good taking Galio against a double AP comp, but if you get caught out in position with your pants down, it doesn't make a great deal of difference. You will still be dropping just like everybody else.
Yeah, especially if 2 ultimates are used on you. However, Elmupo, Nekadurp on his way, I think he was seen by the creep wave. But yeah, what interests me is how teams play with their compositions. A lot of people complain about the meta being very standard, it's like AD carry, bot, and blah blah blah. But it's the way teams, or organised teams, 5s, play. Because some teams like to stall, obviously, as we've just spoken about, Moscow 5 have that very aggressive, punishing sort of composition that they like to go for. And it looks like Tt.dragons want to go for the stalling comp against TMSK, who want that really sort of solid early mid-game team fight, which is just strong as a team.
Yeah, so we were saying before that we think Tt.dragons are going to be more than happy with being in close proximity to TMSK, even if they're slightly behind on kills and also gold. But we are starting to see a bit of a gap opening. 2k and a tower down. It's going to be difficult for Kale to actually keep up on farm, because there's a long distance right now between Elmupo's tower and Kale's second tower, and this is going to give Elmupo a lot of free roam as well to just go around the rest of the map trying to pick up kills with that Slicing Maelstrom, which is incredibly strong in team fights. And already, let's have a quick look at the difference in CS. Yeah, look, you've got Kennen 158, Kale is on 120, and on top of that, Kennen has a 3-for-0 score already with a Riley's Crystal Scepter.
Yeah, exactly. It's all coming down to this "we need to survive" moment. It's just because they can't get shut down. They're 2k behind right now. Kale's not in a great position. Just needs to get to that late game where she scales better. But at the moment, the AP carries are peaking because it's mid game, and that's just how it works. Actually, Team SK grouping up mid, and I think looks like Tt.dragons are going to follow suit, but mid is definitely going to go down. Just a bit too low health at the moment.
Yeah, so I think Tt.dragons, the alarm bells will be beginning to ring. It's not too far away at the moment, but they need to be careful, especially as well going to have an engage coming in. Look at the burst damage and all AoEs as well. Ezreal picks up the first and the second kill. Can he get the third on towards Corki? Yes, he can. Gets the triple, gets the quadra. Could we be seeing a penta or someone scumbag this away? The flash has been failed, and the pentakill comes in from Ezreal. Beautiful play there from Etnex, and that will be the ace. And also, they're marking towards Baron. That was all the AoE ultimates, one after the other. Oh my god.
That was a fantastic catch, basically, from TMSK. They knew that they had to push the advantage, and they went for it. Basically, it looked like that Tt.dragons recognized the fact that they couldn't fight, and they were just trying to get away from it, basically. They tried to poke them, but it was too late. They got locked down by the AoE ultimates, double AP. It was just too much for them, because they have a lot of late game scaling, but not very much in the sort of early mid. And because they got shut down, they didn't have great scaling. Looks like they're going to try and stop this Baron, and this could look very bad for TMSK if they get caught here.
Yeah. We aren't going to have an Idol of Duran. Catches 3 players. Goat's going to get exploded. Also, Countered on very low HP. Nuke Duck will be going down, but here comes Corki from the backside. Beautiful dark binding though from Countered, keeping him locked into position and not allowing him to chase after the rest of his team. Now we're going to have a role reversal with Tt.dragons trying to pick up the Baron. They need to be careful. Corki picks up the kill. Ezreal's ultimate doing a lot of damage, but not enough to pick up any kills himself. And he was the hero just a couple seconds ago with his pentakill. Can he now get the Baron steal is the question. Doing enough harassment, so a glorious success from his perspective, stopping the Baron going down with the Has came in from Nasus onto Etnex. You're going to see some action from Corki flying in and taking down Sona. 11-5 the scoreline, and I said it was fairly slow. At the beginning we had like 4 kills after 15 minutes, well now 16 after 22 minutes.
That pentakill was amazing, but then the follow-up, going straight for Baron was probably not a great idea. This early into the game, the death timers are just not long enough, basically, and Galio still had his ultimate. They caught them in a really bad position, meaning that none of them really popped their ultimates. I think Nasus, and then that was it. Nuke had his, Blademaster had his as well. It's just, they couldn't do anything about it. I don't really understand it. It's like, okay, they had the adrenaline rush from the pentakill. It's like we just aced them this early on into the game. We go Baron, we punished them hard. But it was just not a great call, and then they got punished for it, basically. Kind of allowing Tt.dragons back into the game. If they had just followed through with that advantage, they probably could have just snowballed it until the end. However, they just allowed them back into the game, basically. So if they can stall for long enough, Tt.dragons could still have this.
Well, the consecutive AoE ultimates were just boom, 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 boom. It was like Crescendo, Soul Shackles, Slicing Maelstrom, and then Ezreal's True Shot Barrage, one after the other. It could have not been executed any better if they tried. It was just so, so good. And then on top of that, Nocturne just jumping in and fearing players left, right, and centre. Necroderp has been dark binded. Dragon should be going down for Team MegaShocK. And at one stage, Etnex is on like 1 for 0, quite close farm alongside Corki. Now suddenly he has a Trinity Force and a BF Sword finished off thanks to that pentakill from just before.
Definitely. Just looking at what they can do right now. So they are moving as a group. They're trying to punish them as hard as they can, but obviously they're about 5k ahead. That's still pretty good. It's not as much as it would have been, but even so, they still have the advantage for sure. So it's just how are Tt.dragons going to react to it? How are they going to stop them from completely demolishing them again? And they are pushing top, so if they can get a pick, they might be good to go. But honestly, I feel that Team SK are going to be too tight in the upcoming minutes, just keeping together.
Yeah, going to be pulling themselves back at the moment. Unfortunately, Kale hasn't had the greatest of games thus far, and isn't having a massive impact. Just a Zeal and a pickaxe. 0 for 3, and not brilliant farm, and that's something that's going to have to change here for Tt.dragons. We mentioned before that late game they're going to be strong, but they have to get there, and look at the damage from Ezreal on towards Corki. Beautiful play. Etnex goes godlike. The ultimate has been popped off from Nocturne. Will he be diving? The answer is a resounding no. but scaring, I would imagine, the rest of Tt.dragons that are still standing tall. Corki will not feature for another 20 seconds. True Shot Barrage right down the heart does tag up Kale very, very heavily, but more importantly, clearing up that creep wave. Here we go, Slicing Mask from Luke Pop. Nice headbutt though from Alistair, taking one for the team. He will surely fall, but you have to say, probably saved the life of both Kale and also Nasus, because that headbutt just took Slicing Maelstrom away from the rest of his team, and that will be now Corki resurrecting. But another tower has fallen, so 3-0, and map control definitely in the hands of Team MegaShocK.
Yeah, that was a necessary sacrifice, and that was really good from Drew right there. However, it's still not looking good because they're being pushed in so hard. It's a massive advantage right now. It's just increased the gap even more. 7.7k, 7.3k over Tt.dragons. Yeah, it's not looking good, and I'm not entirely I suppose it makes a good idea to try and push out, get a pick, and then go for a team fight, but I'm not sure if they should be so aggressive. I suppose it makes sense not to get pushed into a corner and get sieged, but they have a lot of clearing capability to stall this, but by pushing out, they've just put themselves on open ground, and just a second ago they were hiding at their turret. So this just gives Team MegaShocK a great opportunity to engage on them. I suppose Elmupper doesn't have his ultimate, but even so, they have quite a few of them coming off cooldown as we speak.
Yeah, they still have. Let's have a look. True Shot Barrage is up, Soul Shackles is up, Crescendo will be up in about 15 to 20 seconds. And as you said before, Slicing Maelstrom was popped before, with good guy Alistair sacrificing himself for the rest of his team. But once all those ultimates are up in conjunction, we could see a rinse and repeat of last time, where Ezreal went huge with the pentakill. That's just the kind of presence right now that Team MegaShocK possess. As you said though, importantly enough, Nukeduck was not able to do anything with his ultimate. I think it's due to the Crescendo, the Soul Shackle, the Nocturne, one after the other, completely neutralizing him. And had the ultimate even gone up, I doubt it would have made much difference. He is looking very aggressive, his ultimate is off cooldown, and he also has the flash on top of that, so if he feels the right moment is near, he could always flash an Idol of Durand, the lineup of Team MegaShocK. Here we are going to have just the Idol of Durand has been popped off, intervention straight back on, lots of burst damage, going to be 2 for 0 exchange, a 3 for 0, a double kill coming in from Corki, and that right there has just gave a lot of confidence to Tt.dragons, completely pummeling Team MegaShocK, and that could very well be a free Baron on top of it, because Sona and Morgana can't do too much to stop this happening. Crescendo has been used, Kautar being forced to push away, but in amongst all of that, they're going to be just focusing on Baron once again, and Kautar may actually go down from Galio. Nice start binding. Oh, look at the damage though from Nukeduck, he's going to be chasing this one down. In the meantime, is Baron nearly falling itself? About a third of HP remaining. Kautar being forced to push away still. But he's doing a nice job here, allowing the rest of his team to take turns on tanking Baron. And finally they have picked it up. The True Shot Barrage comes in and will snipe down Alistair. So Drew must have a sour taste in his mouth right about now. But job has been done. That goal difference pulled back to about 4.1k. And they also have Baron on 4 of their lineup.
That was really nice. Galio's ultimate saved them, basically. It was straight up, it caught 2 to 3 people while Son was away, and Kaltard was about to recall. In fact, he was behind his team. He was like, oh, nothing's really happening here. And it took them by surprise. It was a completely random moment. It was just like he saw the opportunity, he went for it immediately, and he didn't know how to react, and then he got bursted down. Because, as I said, they're not completely out of it. I just thought the push was weird, and seeding was odd, but they knew what they were doing. They were waiting for that pick. It was like, because TMSK didn't expect an engage from the losing team, who was so far behind. And then, yeah, literally, Nukeduck, perfect ultimate on 3 people, locked them down.
I mean, I feel that Spirit of Mage has been overshadowed because of that pentakill, but it's important to note that his build is also really good on Corki. He's got a Trinity Force, he's got a BF Sword and a pickaxe, so he's not that far behind Ezreal, who currently has the Infinity Edge finished off alongside Azeel. But if you have a quick look at the scores, you can understand why he's a couple of items above of Corki. So it's important to note that once Idol of Durand goes down, Corki is given free reign to do whatever he wants. And the other problem right now for Team MegaShocK is after an Idol of Durand is popped, there's a couple seconds where you have just all-out confusion. It's like, who do we focus? Do we engage? Do we run away? What's happening? And in the meantime of that, you just got Corki pummeling away with his phosphorus bombs, pummeling away with his missile barrages, and having a really good time doing so.
Definitely. We could see another engage right now from from Tt.dragons. And honestly, as you said, Corki's not really that far behind Ezreal, and the problem in that fight for TMSK is because Ezreal was caught in that Galio ultimate, which is not really great at all. He might need a Quicksilver Slash, but I assume he won't want to actually be in that position again.
Yeah, it's definitely a big counter, isn't it, to Galio? Quicksilver Sash allows you to just pop it, run away again. Also, on top of that, you've got the Wither, as you said, when it gets towards the level 5 status. In fact, it is now. It decreases your your movement speed by 95%. We are going to have a dragon. And also, here comes the Paranoia. Nasus did manage to smite it just beforehand. Alistair will be going down, slicing Maelstrom, all kinds of AoE all over the Dragon Pit area. And just the one kill has gone down thus far. Corki will go back on towards Morgana. Nasus falls from Sona. Scumbag Sona once again. Steve coming in. And now the rest of Tt.dragons are going to be chased down. Blade Master and also Spirit of Mage, the last two sole survivors of Tt.dragons. And a really good team fight overall from Team MegaShocK. Sure, they didn't get Drake, but they did manage to pick up 3 players, one of which will be down for 35 seconds. And allow them to just farm on up once again.
Yeah, and of course they had Baron right there, which is 18k on the gold, so if you factor that into account, they won the teamfight when they were behind. But that was all down to Etnex surviving. If he dies, they lose, because he's got so many of the team's kills, 10 out of 17. So if he survives, then he's going to rip through them. He went to very low health during that fight, but he still survived. That's the main thing. During the team fight, your main objective is to keep your AD carry alive, because it's sustained damage, and you can take objectives with it afterwards. And because he survived, they could do it exactly that.
Yeah, very valid point. That obviously Etnex not just 10 kills, but 4 assists on top of that. So he is a massive chunk of the DPS coming through for Team MegaShocK. And like you said before, one of the reasons why Tt.dragons were able to pick up the previous team fight and the Baron is because Ezreal was just caught. And even though he is nicely farmed up, he's nicely fed up, Ezreal is still a very, very squishy champion. So if you can manage to clutch him and keep him pinned down, there's always the opportunity for Tt.dragons to push forward and win this game. And remember, like we said before, as time ticks on, Nasus and Corki are going to get stronger and stronger.
Exactly, and that's why the AD carry role is, in my opinion, one of the hardest, because it's all down to positioning. And yes, you have to be attacking, and it's like, okay, just right-click and win, but it's really not. You won't be attacking for a decent chunk of the fight if the bruisers are on your face. As long as you survive and kite them, that's your job done, because it's usually 2 bruisers on you, and if it's 1, if you're this far ahead, then you can duel them. So it's really down to positioning, and yeah, it's a very difficult task to achieve.
Very, very true. So I'm interested to see what Nasus is looking like with his Q farm. 93 additional physical damage, which is going to be, what, 31 last hits that he's landed with his Q. So after 32 minutes, that's not necessarily a brilliant statistic from him. You have to say, though, that map control has definitely been in favour of Team MegaShocK, which never works in the jungler's favour, because of course if they have the map control, they can easily go ahead and counter jungle you, they can steal your race, steal your buffs, and that of course will cripple the jungler over time. But either way, they are fighting underneath a tower. Well, the potential is definitely there. Dark Binding has landed. Look how quickly Kayle goes down. Idol of Durand was whiffed there. I think it may have just caught Kennen at the backside. Intervention used from Kayle. She's not going to be able to pay any part of this team fight. Lots of AoE, and Sona once again will be coming in to pick up the kill. So 1 for 0. Idol of Durand was fairly useless. Intervention was also used in a position which didn't really help the team out. And because Kayle got caught previously, she couldn't even come back into the team fight and start putting down the Righteous Fury or any AD damage. Kaltar's taking a lot of damage in the meantime from Spirit of Mage. The shutdown comes in from Ezreal, who moves to 11 for 1. Again, the AD carry is standing tall, as you said. So good at taking the objectives. The inhib tower is going down to just below 50% HP. And that's 19 for 9. 50.2k gold to Team MegaShocK, 43.8 to Tt.dragons. And I think it's not looking too good for them, to say the least, Pulse.
It really isn't. It wasn't helped by the fact that that Galio ultimate was just completely messed up and missed. It was a good idea in theory, it just didn't work out. And he also flashed, I think, in that engage, so that really wasn't great at all, because that's another 4 minutes, which is considerably longer than his ultimate's cooldown, which is a massive issue for them right now. And because it was under turret, if he had gotten the pick right there, he could have turned the game around once again. However, they just got pushed in. They didn't take an inhib, but they took bottom tower. Nocturne went and picked that one up because they had a large mini wave stack. At the moment, again, it's still not looking good, but they still have great late game scaling. Something I wanted to point out actually is Nasus's build order. He took 5 points in Wither and then 5 points in Spiritfire, not actually really maxing the Siphoning Strike until last. So he's not really looking for the late game scaling which everyone knows about Nasus. He's looking for the utility aspect, which is kind of interesting because yes, it gives AoE. But if you look at him as a support jungler perspective, you look at Alistar, you look at Nautilus, all those support junglers, he's gone for the same build as well. So, in that respect, I think he kind of works, because he will completely shut down an AD carry for about 5 seconds because of the attack speed decrease and movement speed decrease, so it's so easy for his bruisers to get into position.
Yeah, but I'm also a bit confused. In fact, hold that thought for a second, because we could have an engage round here on Baron. The crescendo has gone in, and the tree shot barrage again. The AoE damage is incredible. Dree, the good man, will be headbutting Alistar. Or I should say headbutting Ezreal away, but Ezreal will still pick up the kill. Dark Binding has landed on towards Nasus. As tanky as he is, he will be falling regardless. The triple kill comes in from Kennen. And could we see the second quadra of this evening in the first game? Not looking likely. Spirit of Mage will be going ahead against Etnex, and he will come out second best. So that could actually be the GG. Because you have Spirit of Mage down for 40 seconds, Nuke Duck down for 40 seconds, and the rest of the team down between 20 and 30 seconds. So at least one inhib is going to fall, potentially two. And again, this is just not looking good for Tt.dragons. How can they pull themselves back out of this situation?
That was quite a bad call. Honestly, because they got caught, but if they didn't actually go too near them and just waited for the Baron, they were a bit too aggressive, honestly. That's going to be 2 inhibs. I don't think they're going to go for the finish, but that's a massive cripple. Yeah, that's going to hurt them a lot. It's going to be very, very hard for them to catch up now. 11k advantage, it's huge. And Baron is still up. They may have a last chance there if TMSK get caught, but even so, it's not looking good. Because because they got caught there, that could have easily been the Baron, but even so, 2 inhibs is massive. Yeah, it was not the greatest of calls, honestly.
Yeah, and you know, 2 inhibs, in my opinion, is much more important than Baron, because at this stage, they can afford to push Baron a tiny bit more. Because, you know, Tt.dragons going to have to come away from the base, and doing so, the Super Minion's going to be pushing very, very aggressively. Even though Team MegaShocK didn't finish the game there, I think they put themselves so far ahead, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Tt.dragons to pull this one back. Because farm-wise, they're behind, gold-wise, tower-wise, every single way possible. And this is what I'm talking about. They take the 2 inhib towers down. Right now, Tt.dragons are like, we just have to defend, guys. And in the meantime, surprise, surprise, Baron Nashor is going to go down from blue team.
Yeah, and I think right now is going to be the finish because they can't fight under that inhib turret. Honestly, TMSK are just too strong because they're scaling too well. Maybe under the 2 towers, maybe. But that's a maybe.
And the thing is, even if they do manage to get an ace underneath the 2 Nexus towers, they're still probably going to have lost 3 inhibs, and they can't even really push forward. So again, even right now, if Team MegaShocK lose this next team fight horrifically, they're still so far ahead, you can't see how Tt.dragons pull themselves back out. So many AoEs on display as well that they can just tower dive the tower. Sure, you've got the Idol of Duran, which is very scary, but right now Team MegaShocK are just ridiculously strong. So let's have a quick look. You also have a Zhonya's Hourglass and Morgana, so she can afford to just run on in there, pop the Zhonya's underneath the tower, soak up a lot of the damage, and here comes the Idol of Duran. They're going to try and be aggressive. Intervention used afterwards. Here comes a Slicing Maelstrom from their side. Doesn't matter about the intervention because Etnex is still going to burst down Galio very, very quickly. Kennen onto Corki, and they're going to have to run away. Not too sure about that engage, to say the least. It's going to be another double kill to both Ezreal and Kennen respectively. And that will be the GGWPs coming out from both teams. Very comfortable victory in the end for Team MegaShocK.
That was a good engage in a sense that he had to do it, but of course that's going to be game. He had to do it right there, otherwise there was no real chance of them doing anything. He had to take the opportunity, just didn't work out. Honestly, as you said, if they had lost that right there, then they would have to win like 3 team fights and Baron to actually even it up, not even get ahead. That's when you're so far behind, that's a nasty situation to be in. Yeah,
definitely. So that's going to be game number 1 in the tournament here for the 4PL Play for Fame number 3 July edition, courtesy of TT Esports. And it's best of one, as I said before. So unfortunately for Tt.dragons, they are going to be knocked out, and Team MegaShocK will progress through to round number 2. I'm not entirely sure what our game number 2 is lining up to be, but obviously we are going to cut to a quick commercial break, and we'll update you as soon as we know. So we'll see you very shortly.